Suit up, strap in, warm the tires, and leave on yellow. Time for the MitsuTimes podcast, presented by MitsuTimes.org, the home of the fastest Mitsubishi cars. With your host, Josh.
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Josh from MitsuTimes. Today, my guest is Desmond Pierre. He is the owner and operator of Performance Destination. How you doing today, Desmond?
I'm doing pretty good, sir. Thank you for having me back on the show again.
Absolutely. We're doing a bonus episode today because it's early on in the race season, at least for us here stateside. And I feel like it's important to talk about taking your car to the dyno because a lot of people like me, I've never done a dyno tune, always just done street tunes and went to the track and sent it. And I know that's not the right answer. And I just feel like a lot of people are intimidated to go to the dyno or to reach out to someone with a shop like yours, Desmond, to take their car there and get it fine-tuned in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to talk about why a dyno tune is important to start with.
Well, for me, I think it's safer. I think it's quicker. I think it's easier. I come from the background of street tuning, so I get it for how street tuning. You don't need, some people don't need a dyno to get the same results. I understand that, but with me, I live in a busy city like Orlando, Florida, and street tuning out here is kind of madhouse. Traffic is crazy, bumper to bumper. You'll try to turn at a light, and you try to get a nice straightaway, but all of a sudden someone cuts you off. And then you just be driving around just trying to find a clear road or a clear shot just to make pulls or driving or 20 minutes, 15 minutes of the time you're just in bumper to bumper traffic. So on the dyno, it's a lot easier because I'm in a controlled environment. I load a car on the dyno. I don't have to worry about traffic. I can take my time. Customer doesn't have to be driving, and I don't have to worry about the customer driving or worrying if the customer itself, if he or she is good at driving. The amount of time it could take me on the street, a street tune could probably take you up to 2 hours sometimes, depending on how busy it is. But on the dyno, if everything else is good and I'm just tuning, and I could probably save 30, 40, 50 minutes less on the dyno than it is on the street because it's so much quicker just operating in an environment where it's controlled and I don't have to worry about outside elements like traffic and people walking and stop signs and school buses and it's just a lot smoother and quicker that way for me, in my opinion.
It makes a lot of sense. The fact that I think it has a lot to do with I've never had a car that I thought was in need of a dyno tune, but you see a lot of everything from serious race cars to daily driven cars. People are going to shops like yours and dyno tuning to get it finally tuned in. So I want to talk about besides safety, like you said, is a dyno tune better than a street tune?
I think it depends on the car. Now, it can be better, and it also can be the same. Now, if you're a full-blown race car, you're out there trying to go for top 10 lists or whatever like that, the dyno can tell you how your combination is working. It can tell you where your power band is. It can tell you if it's holding power band, if your power band's falling off. It could tell you all of that. Now, if you are you have an upgraded turbo setup, but you're on a stock block. If you are on the street, you do not know how much horsepower you are putting through that stock block if you are exceeding its limits, its rod torque limits. So if you were doing a street tune and you put 28 pounds of boost through a precision turbo or FP turbo, whatever turbo you want to use, and you are making over 400 or over 480 or 490 foot-pounds of torque, whatever it is, amount of torque, you can't measure that on the street.
Right.
So the street won't tell you if you are within a safety measurement of what that stock bottom end can handle. On the dyno, you can. I can see if I make a pass and I say, okay, I'm knocking at the doors a little too close to where that the stock block limit. let me slow down the turbo of the spool, or let me slow down the power band down low so I'm not making near its limit, and then I could speed it up top where I could still make horsepower, but you could have a nice smooth balance on the dyno. On the street, you can't.
Right.
Now on the street, I think a street will be pretty good if you wanted to get a car up and running, driving. You just put together a setup, a build, and you just wanted to get it fired up, and you want to make sure everything is operating properly before you bring it to a dyno. I get it. You want to put it on the street. You can street tune it just where the drivability is nice and smooth. Do some light pulls, some wastegate pulls, and then this way everything's operating a lot smoother than going to the dyno and wasting time. But overall, to see if your combination is working, I would say dyno. Overall, to see if you are within spec of a stock block rating, I would say dyno. All that, you can't hide none of that on the dyno. You're able to see how your setup is working and see if everything is healthy and where it needs to be.
That's great points. I also think, Desmond, we should kind of jump off what you were saying. A lot of standalones, DSM Link especially, has those horsepower and torque estimates. Those cannot be trusted when you're talking about, is this safe for my stock block? Yeah.
Now, I see a lot of tuners who use that. I get it. It's something to go off of. To be honest with you, I don't use virtual dynos. I have a dyno myself, so I don't use virtual dyno. So, could it get close? Ballpark, yeah. But could it be misleading? Yeah. I don't go by virtual measurements. Virtual measurements is not accurate. I'm not calling in a diamond inspector and giving them what this diamond ring looks like over the phone,
right.
And then they're going to give me an estimated price of what it's worth.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So the virtual part is it'll tell you a reading to the point where it'll put out the graph where you'll see if your power band is running smooth, if it's running consistent back to back. You can see the curves. You can see if it's falling off. You can see boost holding up properly. AFRs look good. The horsepower and the torque is building nice and smooth. But that's the only thing I would even consider going off of that as a reference. Comparing it to an actual real dyno, I don't. You got to ask yourself, anybody who is on the top 10 list of the world's fastest, or anybody who is 700, 800, 900, 1400 horsepower, have you ever seen them use a virtual dyno?
Not at all.
Never once seen anybody. Would you ever, and ask them, would they put their car and run it and believe it off of a virtual dyno? So they wouldn't even trust that. So even at that level, I wouldn't trust that. Even at a 400, 500, 600 horsepower level, I don't even trust that, because you could put it on a virtual dyno and you think everything's all gravy, but say that virtual dyno put out the wrong torque number,
mm-hmm.
and now you're over torqued on what you can handle, depending on how built or how not built your setup is.
Right.
So it's always better to get with an actual dyno and go off of that. Me personally, like I said, I own a dyno. I am a dyno shop. I do a lot of remote tunes, and I could give out virtual stuff. I don't. I don't believe in virtual tuning for horsepower readings, so I don't use it, I don't offer it, and I don't even consider it.
Got it. So, Desmond, when you were talking about, it could cost you, going off those numbers, could cost you an engine, is, what I want to bring up, because obviously if you're running a stock block and your virtual dyno says this much torque and you think it's safe, you take it to the track, hit that two-step, boom, there goes your stock bottom end. You lost an engine, maybe even a head, and you're out a whole lot of money.
Right. And me personally, as being a shop, being a business, I don't never want to put anybody's setup or at harm. Their motor at harm, their pockets at harm. I don't want them to spend money on fixing things that they don't need to. So it's like I'm always better off being safe than sorry.
Right.
That's how I operate.
Yep.
I'm always better off being safe than sorry. because what's a virtual dyno going to put out that really means anything? Are we trying to get internet famous by my virtual dyno told me I made this much? Okay, when I see stuff like that, I don't even clap. Put on the actual dyno and see what it does, and I'd be like, okay, that's pretty nice.
Yeah.
But on the virtual wise, the thing is, you can skew up those numbers anyhow. You can skew up numbers. The weight, you can input different weight, input different tire size, input different this and that, and if your stuff, if all this information is inputted incorrectly, or wasn't put in properly or anything like that, then how do you truly know where you're at?
Right. Well, I bring up cost because, everyone who's listening to this is probably either 4G63 or 4B11, maybe even some V6 guys out there, but this still applies to them. But we know that there's a limited number of 4G63 blocks. They're starting to become harder and harder to find. The 4B11 is still very expensive to, obtain a block and to build it from there. So the money that you could save by going to a dyno could be a very large sum of money, tens of thousands of dollars. So that's why I want to talk about what is the average cost of a dyno tune?
Well, there's not really much of an average cost. Everybody charge what they charge. You may call one shop in and they may say it's $600 start to finish. You may call another shop in and they may tell you it's $1,500 or $1,200 start to finish. Not every tuner is at the same level. Not every tuner is at the same level where they charge at the same level. Some guys who come in who, they occasionally they do evos a little here and there, and they're like, okay, I could take you in. It's going to be about, roughly $500, $600 to tune your car. They don't do it like that. It might take them a little bit longer to get that car tuned and done right. Or you might go to someone who actually do Evos or Mitsubishis on a regular, and they'll charge you $1,200, $1,000, $900, whatever their rate is, because you're paying for that quality of service.
Yeah.
They might be able to get you done in an hour, hour and a half, done right, because they already know what they're looking for. They already built up on this platform of understanding all the ins and outs. Standalone stock computer for somebody who's not so familiar with certain computers, but they do know how to tune, but they're not so familiar. They'll charge you less, and they'll take a lot longer. And but someone who is familiar, they can get it done quicker, more efficient, and charge you more. But you're really paying for the quality of the service.
Yeah,
that's all it really is. You're paying for the difference is the quality of service. And sometimes you also pay for the name of the company. I know people out there like that. They charge more because they feel like their name is superior, but you're really paying for the quality of the service. Cheaper is not always better, because you understand if you have to pay cheap 5 times over, now you almost paid what it would have cost you going to the right person the first time,
right,
for the one time.
Yep. And either way, it's still less expensive than a replacement engine or internal parts.
Correct.
So, Desmond, ever since we got together and created the dyno list on MitsuTimes, I see a lot of people say, oh, well, I wonder what this reading would have been on a Mustang dyno, or I wonder what this Mustang dyno reading would have been on a dyno jet, or this person made this much, but on a dyno jet it would have been this much. And I want to talk about the differences in the different dyno types and why it matters.
All right. I can explain about that. Now, just so it's clear, there is no trophy for what the difference of how much power I made on this dyno. I could have made more on that dyno. I made less because I only went to this dyno. There is no trophy win for that. At the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, does your car run good? Does it fire up? Does it sound healthy? Does it drive smooth? Do you get into boost properly? Does it feel fast to you? Do you enjoy it on a regular? That's what you got to ask yourself. Now, there is different type of dynos out there. DynoJet, Mustang, DynoCom, Dynapack, Mainline. There's probably a few more out there as well. Just to name the few popular ones. Now, there is difference between the dynos. the readings on some of them. DynoJet is an inertia dyno. Inertia dyno, which is DynoJet, they have a heavy roller drum that freely rotates, calculating the horsepower by analyzing the dyno drum's acceleration rate. The computer knows the weight of the drum and calculates how fast the wheel spins, and that's how it puts out its numbers. DynoJets are great dynos, but that's for peak horsepower numbers. Peak horsepower numbers. So when I mean peak horsepower numbers, I mean wide open pulls. You're getting on the dyno and you're doing wide open pulls. It's fine. It's good for that. Now, if you have to get on the dyno and you have to tune certain cell by cell by cell and trying to get the load in certain areas, most of the DynoJets can't do that. I think they actually came out with some load DynoJets now, but with eddy current. I'll explain that in a little bit. But usually most DynoJets are inertia. They're really big fat rollers that are heavy, and then depending on how fast you accelerate on the weight of that drum, it will determine how much horsepower you put out. And there's some other ones in the category of eddy current. Eddy current is with Mainline, is with Dynapack, Mustang Dyno, Dynocom. They have those are load-bearing dynos. So as you are, how can I say this? So as you are accelerating, there is a resistance holding you back. The load-bearing dyno is a machine that changes the mechanical energy into electrical energy. And these dynos are, I would have to say, have the most potential to be the most accurate.
Okay.
Being that it's because it's applying the load as you're increasing speed. It just, to me, that's what I would use. I use an eddy current dyno. I load up my cars with load as it's increasing, as I'm going through the power band, going up in RPM. Or I can be honest with you, I can go 50 miles per hour and I can be at 70, 80% throttle, and the dyno would hold me there. And if it holds me there, I can operate in different parts of the fuel tables or ignition tables, the fuel tables, and I can work and tune those particular areas. And I can have the dyno hold me there while I'm like not full throttle, but part throttle.
Wow.
Tuning like that. So you want to use something that has that type of feature. And it you don't want something that's just spins with no load, or anything like that. Depending on how much horsepower you are, depending on how big of an eddy brake that you need to use for that horsepower level. Sometimes you have a small little eddy brake that on those dynos, and it doesn't hold that setup. It's not strong enough to hold that car properly. But sometimes you use a bigger one, which comes in different sizes, and it can hold that car. It can hold that load. You could do a full, nice, long pull, and it's not a fast sweeps. So that's the difference between them, in my opinion. And the difference between all of those also is like certain dynos are also have a link system. So Dynocom and Mustang, their dynos are link systems. My dyno is a link system. So what I mean by link system is, depending on certain vehicles, sometimes it don't have to be just Mitsubishi's. It could be any other manufacturers where the front wheel has to move at the same speed as your rear wheel. Because if it doesn't, it starts to freak out and bugs out in the computer system. I've had cars, other manufacturer cars, get on the dyno and it runs good. They try to, and then where they came to me runs good. And when they went to other shops that had a DynoJet that wasn't a link system, their system was freaking out. ABS was going off. Everything was like, holding the car down because it realizes the front wheels are moving faster or slower than the rear wheels, or vice versa. Okay. So you always want to make sure you ask those kind of questions on that. Mustang has load on their dyno. Mainline has load on the dyno. Dyno has load on the dyno. Dynocom has load on the dyno. And if I need more load, you can apply more load as you need it. But you don't want to have a dyno where it's only just wide open sweeps. A lot of people use DynoJet. There's nothing wrong with DynoJet. Nothing wrong at all. I particularly had a customer a few years back. Tell you a story. I had a customer I tuned. I think we made like 413. It was nothing too crazy. He's on it was a stock block, 52 millimeter upgraded turbo. He made 413. He came from South Florida, and he fixed his car, but he didn't want to make the trip all the way back to Orlando, so he went to a local place down south of Florida on a different dyno. And everybody swore it was going to be like, yeah, now you got to make some real numbers, some real this and real that. And I'm like, he made 1 horsepower more.
Oh wow!
1 horsepower more difference. He made 413 with me. He went to another shop on a different dyno, DynoJet, and he made 414. Was his final result?
Wow!
Same exact numbers. So people have to understand. Never get hung up on numbers, a number game. When I'm tuning, to be honest with you, I don't even look at the numbers. I see the customers and their family, they're always running over to the computer screen while I'm trying to tune, but like, I don't even look at the numbers. I look to see how my graph looks. I look to see if everything is repeatable. It's repeatable. That's what I really focus on. I look at my graph, I'm like, okay, I see it looks nice, but I'm like, okay, it's kind of falling off up top. Or I'm like, let me go back in the software and see why this is falling off. How can I get it to pull a little bit more longer without it falling off? I'm not worried about that, But if it's like a stock setup, then yeah, I'm looking at the numbers because I also want to make sure it's safe for what I'm doing. But usually, I'm not really a numbers person. I look at the power band, and and if the customer say, yeah, I want to make a certain number, then yeah, I'm going to tune for a certain number if it's within their setup. But yeah, the horsepower readings is, it's become more of like everybody wants to get applaud for being on this type of dyno, you having this type of number, but majority of the time, what are you really doing with that horsepower?
Yeah.
What, are you going to go to Cars and Coffee with it?
Right.
So, but that's about it. That's what I think on that.
Yep. It's hard for me to even say anything about that. There's some cars on the dyno list I would love to see their time slip to go with it, but
right. And the thing is, that's all it is. You got cars on there, that are pretty questionable. Who am I to say this, that, blah, blah? I wasn't there. I'm not the tuner. I'm not this and that. But there's certain cars on there that's a little questionable, But that's their thing. If they want to put it on up there and just to get a hurrah by, I made this much horsepower, like, that's cool. I guess that's, if that's what you want. But I always ask the customer or tell them, like, yo, we're going to make sure this car runs good. It's going to drive good and run good first. And then we're going to make power. And then you're going to enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Desmond, I feel like, obviously we know our audience that's going to be listening to this. Evos, all-wheel drive DSMs, Galant VR4s, 3000 GTs. What am I going to do when the shop nearest me has a two-wheel dyno and obviously my car is all-wheel drive?
Then it won't work. That's the only thing I can really say. It won't work. We are not Hondas, where a Hondas, they can remove their drive shaft and go from all-wheel drive to front-wheel drive and still tune and still operate and then get off a dyno, put the drive shaft back in, and go all-wheel drive back again. We're not that. So if you are an Evo or anything all-wheel drive and your local dyno shop only has a two-wheel front-wheel drive dyno, it won't work. You're either going to be street tuning or you're going to figure out another location for dyno tuning. That's really what it is.
Yeah, which brings me to, the next part. What should I be looking for in a shop when I'm trying to figure out a shop that's right for me to get a dyno tune?
in my opinion, one that is experienced on the computer choice and platform of what you're looking for. Like, you have to have somebody who's experienced on that computer. If you have, looking for a certain kind of shop, and you go to a shop and, all they do is only fuel tech, or all they do is only stock computer, all they do is only hull tech, you want to make sure you go with someone who is reputable with whatever computer choice that you are going to use or your platform. You're not going to walk into an LS, Chevy, or Mustang shop and you want them to figure out to tune your Mitsubishi front-wheel drive or Evo all-wheel drive system. You have to go with someone who's reputable on that computer. Because when you go with someone who's reputable on that computer, it saves so much time and headache, one for the tuner, and then one for yourself. Because you'll be able to, if you have any issues or any type of problematic with the car or whatever like that, the guy already knows where to go in and look. He really knows how to set up certain things. You want rolling anti-lag? Cool. I already know the settings, how to do this. You want boost by gear by whatever computer you have? Cool. I already know how to go in there and do this. But if that person is not familiar with that platform, that computer, then that's not too well of a smart choice.
Yeah.
Now, can that person tune? Hell yeah, that person could tune. But that doesn't mean anything. You want to go with someone who's reputable in that. And the second big thing I can really chime in on this that is biggest amongst what I just said is someone who has the best, choose someone who brings you and gives you the best customer service. It does you no justice if you get with a performance shop or a tuner that is the best in the whole entire industry, but does not take care of you, does not answer your phone, does not call you back, does not fill you in on what's going on, that does not give you that customer care.
Yeah.
I know how it can be. You get overwhelmed and you're tuning so many cars, you have your clientele so big. I tune for everybody over the whole world and also all my local customers. So I get it. I know how it could be, but still, I always show up and give my customer service everybody who works with me, because they chose to work with me. They didn't have to work with me, but they chose to work with me. So you don't want to just choosing the shop just to choose it. So you want to make sure you do your due diligence, picking the right shop, making sure they have good customer service, making sure that they take care of their customers. You do not want to work with people who can tune you and then they go ghost. Those are not the ones you want to work with. You want to work with someone who's going to back you up, who's always going to be there for you. Because, at the end of the day, these cars aren't built to always run perfect. They're going to have issues. They're going to have bugs. You may not know what you're doing. So you put your trust into those who are experienced, or those who are the leaders of the industry, or people who just know what they're doing in a sense of tuning or mechanical. So you do your research to make sure not only are they qualified and they're skilled, but their customer service is up to par, and that they're going to be in my corner when I do need them.
Yeah, it's the first thing that comes to mind for me is, does the tuner have the same goal in mind that I have? And that just, what you were saying just makes me think of that. Like, if I want to do this and the tuner is just telling me to get lost, then I don't know if that's the right shop for me.
Right. Correct.
So Desmond, how far in advance should I contact a shop when I want to do a dyno tune? Because, just like anything, I don't want to come in the same day and try to get on the dyno right away.
Right. Me, typically, I tell a lot of people to contact me like 2 weeks before. This way I can check my schedule. This way, if you have to make yourself available with in advance for time off of work, this way, if I have to rearrange and figure out a day that works for you. But I say typically 2 weeks ahead of time. And then if someone has to book you out a month in advance, or some shops 2 weeks or 2 months in advance, cool. But at least 2 weeks ahead of time, that's fine. Don't be that person where you go to a shop and you're trying to ask all these questions, and you're trying to get, and you say you want to get tuned, and when are you ready? Oh, I won't be ready no time soon, probably the next 7 months. So it's like, We're not really talking about anything, when a lot of people do that. So about 2 weeks ahead of time I think, is a good sweet spot for getting with the shop, getting with the tuner, and to get on their schedule, and also to figure out your schedule that it fits for each other.
Okay. Now, Desmond, when we're talking about someone's first time going to a dyno, because what I see a lot is I see shops post like, "Hey, we're not going to touch any more DSMs because they come in here and they're not ready to tune." So what kind of checks do I need to make on my car before I even bring it to your shop?
Really and truly, I would tell people to check over everything. You need to check over everything. Make sure the car runs good. Make sure it's not leaking. Make sure your fuel system is proper. Make sure you got new plugs. Make sure you got good fuel. Make sure you bleed your coolant system. Make sure your head bolts are nicely torqued down. Make sure you do a boost leak test. Make sure your wheel bearings ain't going crazy. Make sure you got a good alignment. You kind of want to go over the whole entire car. If you drive that car down the road and it doesn't feel right, and it's vibrating like crazy, motor mount is jumping up and down, the steering wheel is halfway cocked to the left or to the right, and you're driving straight, but your steering wheel is cocked all sideways, you got a heavy vibration because your wheels are out of balance, all these things, then you need to know, I'm not ready for a tune yet. Let me address all these issues, because we're gonna have sometimes you're gonna have tuning issues arise, but you don't want to have actual mechanical issues or issues on the vehicle that you could have fixed ahead of time.
Yeah,
I've had guys come to me and their alignment was off. So on the dyno, it's just vibrating like crazy, or their wheels is vibrating like crazy. I could feel it in the steering wheel vibrating like crazy. And when it's vibrating like crazy like that, I'm not trying to do no 700-800 horsepower pulls on no crazy vibration,
right?
Because I'm trying to hold the steering wheel nice and tight and straight, and also sometimes depending on if I have the dyno controller in my hand too. But it's just, you want to make sure you go over everything. Really, there's not really only one aspect of checking. You want to check over everything. You want to know you'll know if your car is really ready for tuning, and or are you just ignoring the signs and thinking, oh, it's okay, I'm just gonna go in there and just get it done just to get it done.
Right.
Like, you'll know when you drive a car off of the showroom or from a car dealership, you know if that car drives good or drives smooth. And if your car don't drive smooth and there's a heavy vibration in the front, or something's loose in the rear, or whatever, you want to make sure your car is good. All your bolts are nicely tightened. It's safe. Make sure all your wheels are nicely tightened and safe. I've had times where I've tuned the car, and the customer said he went over everything. It was street tuned, and I went to go do a tune, and the crazy experience was the wheel fell off.
Jeez.
in the middle of street tuning. Like, I'm going street, making a pull, and the wheel come off, and I see a wheel just fly right past me, and we go down on the ground, and we're just skidding, and then, like, instantly right there, I told him, like, I'm done. You have to stop rushing yourself just to get tuned. There's no point of rushing to get tuned, because us going this fast, us making all this power, it gets dangerous. It gets dangerous in the street. Like, imagine if that was on the dyno,
right?
And your wheel fell off, you're instantly damaging that dyno.
Yeah.
But if you got that much money to replace a partial of that dyno, cool. But just make sure you check over everything. It saves yourself a headache, and it saves the tuner the headache as well.
Man, that's crazy. So, Desmond, what kind of things should I bring with me when it's my turn for the dyno tune?
Now that depends on the shop. So if you are with a tuner, and that tuner doesn't own that shop, doesn't work at that shop, but they only rent at that shop, and you're bringing it there just to tune, then you need to bring your own general tools. If you also don't want that particular shop to charge you for anything mechanical, then you need to bring your own tools. Because if the shop has to bust out their own tools and start fixing your car while it's there, then it's going to be additional.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that you bring your own general tools. So if the tuner or shop, they tell you go ahead and fix your car or do this, then that's cool. You have tools there, you can fix it. You don't want to come empty-handed, and then the shop gives you a price quote of it's going to cost you $400 extra that you don't have. Then that whole tuning session goes out the window.
Right.
But if you have your own general tools where you're able to pull your fuel pumps out, see what's going on, maybe you have a burst fuel line, that's why the car is dropping fuel pressure, or maybe you see that your pumps are clogged, maybe you see that one pump is not working, or whatever. At least you have general tools to check over your car. Another thing is spark plugs. I don't care if you tell me your spark plugs. I just put those in there just last week. It only takes one startup and idle for 15 to 20 minutes, or even half of a session, or whatever. Or if you came in running pig rich, for you to foul out plugs. It does not take long for you to foul out plugs. If you're coming to get tuned, always come with an extra set of spark plugs. I can't even explain how important that is. Always come with an extra set of spark plugs. With me, I always start a customer's car off on the plugs they have, because I already know I'm going to go rich, I'm going to go lean, I'm trying to figure out the bugs, I'm trying to iron it all out. And then once I have everything ironed out and I know this car is running crisp, okay, now it's time for me to gap the new plugs and drop the new plugs in. Because once I start tuning that car and I put the new plugs in, I'm going to be pulling the old plugs out and going over it with you and looking at it, making sure that the fuel is burning right. Making sure there's enough heat in the motor, making sure there's enough timing in the motor. I can't tell all that by looking at your old plugs that are halfway fouled out, or looking at your old plugs that you gap them and you bang them on the ground, and I can't read that. So always make sure you have extra set of spark plugs. It's you just think yourself later.
Yeah, it's impossible to tune around something that like a fouling plug.
Mm-hmm.
So Desmond, what if I want to do a dual map tune with you, and let's just say I just got my Evo set up to run E85 this year, but I only want to do it at the track. So when I come to do my dyno tune, what fuel do I need to have in the tank?
Now, how it works with me, if you're going to do a dual map, and all the rules apply to the same thing like flex fuel, dual map or flex fuel. Dual map is for stock ECU stuff, and the flex fuel is for the standalone stuff. But the rule applies across the board. You need to make sure your fuel system is compatible for both fuels you run. I've had guys come through on regular gasoline 93 quality fuel filters, and I asked them, like, yo, is this everything's flex compatible, everything's ethanol compatible? They were like, yeah, it is. And they come to find out it's not. As soon as I put E85 in there and I'm about to go make a pull, the fuel pressure is dropping. And I check over everything, I'm going through everything, and come to find out, I pull the pumps out and the fuel filter was not ethanol compatible. Make sure your fuel filter is ethanol compatible. Make sure your fuel line is ethanol compatible. Make sure your injectors are ethanol compatible. Stainless internals on your injectors. Make sure all of that, because you do not want fuel problems. Fuel problems can hurt things. Fuel problems causes headaches. It causes all type of stuff that you just don't want to go through, when you could have just make sure everything was set up and done properly the first go around. How I operate when I do my flex fuel tunes or dual map tunes, I always start with 93 first. Usually everybody who does flex fuel or dual map, they're mainly I've always seen they're mainly going to be on E85 all the damn time. So, but they want the 93 calibration just in case there is no E85.
Right.
If there's a shortage, or if the E85 is testing low, 60, 50%, which you know it's not good. And then, they want you put in some 93 in there, and their flex would blend over, or you'll have to do the automatic switch over for the stock ECU stuff. But I always do 93 first, and then E85, because that's where it's mainly going to sit.
Yeah.
And that's just how I operate. And if your 93 tune ain't right, and it's not right, and it's not running good, and you're having fuel problems, and the fuel flow and the fuel pressure drop on 93, if all those bugs happen on 93, you are going to have these same exact problems apply on E85.
Yeah.
One fuel has to be completely ironed out by the time you go to the next fuel.
Desmond, I want to go back and touch on something that you said about fuel quality, because if I come in there and I forgot to get 93, I just put 89 in it and try to use a bottle of the AutoZone octane booster, we're going to probably have issues. So I want to talk about how important fuel quality is when it comes to my dyno tune.
Fuel quality is important. It's very important. Making horsepower. We're not in the business as you owning a car and as us being tuners to make less horsepower than what we want. We want to make power. We want to go fast. We want to enjoy our car. Fuel quality is everything. Me personally, I would tell you right now, never throw in no octane booster. Never do it. I don't care what you have. I don't care what your buddy told you. I don't care what the guy down there at the gas station told you. Never throw no octane booster in there. You always want to make sure you have good fuel quality. If you accidentally in some 87 in there, I don't know, whatever. If you wasn't looking at the pump and you didn't see it, you need to drain that out. Drain it out completely, and you need to put in a higher grade of if it's 93, put the 93 in there. Now, when it comes to E85, you need to first always, if it's your daily driver, you need to always have a test tube with you at least, or you need to have an ethanol sensor in your car. This way, if you're putting in good fuel, you'll instantly know if your ethanol is going up or if it stays the same or is going down. Anything 78% and up is usable, in my opinion. It's usable, it's good. If you're at 78 or 81, roughly to me, they're about the same. I really haven't seen no difference. Now, but for me here in Florida, our good E85 is 83% and up. We usually test at a good station here. We test at 83%, 85%, and we have a couple special like pump gas stations that tests 90 before.
Wow.
And it's, in a couple spots in Orlando that has it. But our good E85 out here is 83. Most places, I've remote tuned in Pennsylvania. I remote tune in all these other places across the states. And sometimes they don't get that higher grade ethanol like how we do. But, they'll be a little bit lower. And, you can't help it. You can't help that. I've been to Vegas and tuned in Vegas, and I had a couple guys, their E85. They went to a few different stations, and the best they got was 76.
Wow.
In that area, so I get it. So because a lot of those places they get a lot of winter blend stuff, where it's not the highest quality percentage. But here in Florida, we don't even have any winter blend stuff. We just have we'll either get really good quality, or sometimes you might get a bad batch. I've had bad batches before, and it tested at 56, 60 or 60%. I'm not using it. I'm dumping it. So, and I'll try to go to another location. But good fuel quality is everything. It makes horsepower.
Yeah.
It makes power. When you throw in, that's like if you're trying to tune a car on some bad gas or some old gas. Are you going to make all the power that you can on some old gas? Or if you throw in some fresh, higher quality octane rating or higher quality ethanol rating, you're going to make more power. So it's highly important to make sure you always have tested fuel 93, not so much. You could test 93 is 93. But if you are on ethanol, then you always want to make sure you have a test tube or at least have an ethanol gauge in your car.
Makes sense. So, Desmond, I also want to touch on what you were saying about tuning on cars from different locations. Let's say that the shop nearest me, they're not familiar with my platform or with my system, so I'm going to have you remote in on their dyno, and we're going to do it like that. What do I need to do? Let's say you and I have already hooked up. We already have this plan. We already have it scheduled. I already have it scheduled with the shop. What do I need to do differently that I would, instead of bringing the stuff with me to your shop, what do I need to do differently?
For like if you was dyno tuning remotely for another shop?
Yeah.
Everything I mentioned to you, all the same. Everything I mentioned to you earlier, all the same rules apply. For remote tuning, the dyno operator just make sure that shop has good Wi-Fi, good internet service. If it's stock ECU, it's not too much. Like if you get to turn the car off, flash it, you're not really tuning it live on stock ECU. But if it's anything standalone, where you need to, you're driving it, you're seeing live readings, live logs while driving it, live readings, back and forth. You want to make sure that shop has good Wi-Fi service because you do not want to have, while you're in the middle of making a 42 psi boost pull, and internet just went out, or it's freezing while you're in that session. That's for one. The second thing is you want to make sure whatever shop you are using the dyno, especially for any remote services, make sure that they operate properly, where they know what they're doing. And it's not like, a new shop and they don't know how to strap the car, or they don't know how to load the settings incorrectly. You just want to make sure that they know what they're doing on their end, and just make sure you have good internet service, because that's very important.
Okay. So, Desmond, let's say I have it scheduled with you. We're going to do 3 o'clock on a Friday. I get there, got the car on the trailer. You open up the bay door. What can I expect once we get started?
That tuning isn't 30 minutes. Tuning isn't gonna be like, you walk in, walk out. It ain't gonna be it's not gonna be no fast food service. It takes time to iron a car out. And don't come in with any like thought or expectations of you got to put a time on it. This is only going to take an hour. This is only going to be this and that, because things happen, things arise where you did not think this problem was going to happen. We did not think the boost controller wasn't working. We did not think you lost all power to the car or whatever's going on. I've seen all type of situations I've been in, and I've heard stories as well. So never come in thinking it's only going to be 30 minutes in and out. Just come in. Reality, me personally, what I would do, I would come in not expecting any time of when to leave. Now, if you're done within an hour, 2 hours, cool. But don't come in at 10 o'clock in the morning and then you have to tell your dyno operator, I have to be at work at 12 or 12:30. Because then now he's rushing, you're rushing his process, and now everything is not flowing smoothly. And it just turns into a domino effect after that. So just make sure you come in. This is something you have to have patience with. I've had customers come in and they just sit down there, they just wait. They know I'm doing my thing. If I come up to them and ask them a couple questions, cool. They let me get right back to what I'm doing. But then I've had customers come in and they've come with their wives, their kids, the whole family, and I'm like, bro, you already know that this was a problematic car. I don't say nothing. I don't care. But you already know there's a problematic car coming in. This is going to be a little bit. Right. You brought everybody with you, and by time I'm done tuning, sometimes if it's like a really rough car that took me 3 hours to get ironed out, 4 hours to get ironed out, fixing and tuning, and I know I can see the look on their wife's face to like, always pissed. So, but it's never come in with like a certain time that you're going to be out, because this is not no magic wand
Right.
where here's 1 hour session, you're done.
Yeah. Yep. It's just one of those things. It could be, like you said, it could be an hour. It could be 4 hours.
Right, right. It really is, and I've had some, and I'm not gonna lie, I've had a car one time. I did an Evo X, I think like a few weeks ago or a month ago or something like that, and I didn't tune him the first go around. I went over his car, went over all his problems, told him about his MyVec wasn't working. Told him why, do this, do that, do that. Make sure you adjust this and get your car right. When that guy came back in, we did his 93 tune. It took me only 2 pulls to get to where he wanted to be at. I think it was like 440 on 93. And then we drained that, and then we activated his flex fuel tune. And then by the time his flex fuel tune, I think his flex fuel tune took me like 3 or 4 pulls, but that didn't take long. And from start to finish, and I'm not saying it wasn't a quality service. It was a really good quality session. It took me like 49, 50 minutes
Wow.
to do that car, because we went through everything. We went over everything. I showed him everything. When he came to tune, there was no surprises. I didn't have to hop out the car and double check this, double check that.
Right.
I might hop out the car, and I always pull the plugs and make sure the plugs look good and gap the new plugs, put those in. I might get out, make sure my dyno straps are nicely tight and whatnot, but it was start to finish. It was smooth. And I usually don't get cars like that. I'm very thankful I did, because it's good to have cars where it rolls smoothly. But he didn't come in with any expectations of it being that being that quick. So just always come in and just be mindful that this takes time to set certain things up correctly.
Yeah. So Desmond, what if my car is super low? I scrape all the speed bumps in my neighborhood, and I can't take it to have it serviced at any shop because it won't go up on the ramps. Is it going to keep me from getting on your dyno?
Yes and no. If I start loading your car up and your bumper starts hitting the ramps, all right, cool. We could take your front bumper off. But if I start going more up on the dyno, and your car is so low and your drive shaft is scraping on the dyno, or if your exhaust system is scraping on the dyno, or anything of the body of the car is low and scraping on the dyno, that's a problem. Anything of where your car damaged the user's equipment is a problem. Your car's too low at that point. You can easily raise it up so you can get your dyno tune service, and then it's this way. It's safer that way, where things are not going to get hurt or damaged on the dyno and scraped and scarred up, or damaged. And then when it's back in your possession and you go home, then you can lower it back to the right height where you want it at. But if you already know that if you're driving down the road and your exhaust collector is hitting like reflectors and breaking reflectors, then your car's too low.
Right.
I've had those before where their exhaust system is hitting the dyno, and I tell them, like, yo, this is too low. And then luckily, they already knew that, and they brought their coilover adjustment keys with them, because they already knew that going in. But so if you already knew that, just be ready to, ahead of time, before coming in, make sure your ride height is good. That's one thing. The next thing is, I've had cars on the dyno where their wheel, the rear end was too low. So by the time I went into boost and I did a full throttle, like higher boost pull, the ass end starts squatting, and your wheel starts tucking into the fender well, and it started eating up the tire, and it just started smoking the tire. Literally, I thought a tire blew out from how much smoke was coming out back there. And when I looked, I could see the tires all scarred up because his wheels from his rear end suspension. Everything was way too low. So just make sure you have enough space in there. So because people don't think about that. They don't think about, let me go in there. I'm doing a big turbo, 28 pounds, 40 pounds of boost, but your car is strapped down. Usually with higher boost levels, your car is more than extra strapped down. Sometimes people bring out extra straps. So you're strapped down even tighter. So whenever your car is making that pull, if you ever look on a dyno video and when you're on the dyno, you can see your ass end is squatting down very heavy. And you can see where the wheels are tucking into the wheel well. And if your wheels are the offset where it pokes out, where it's not flush, where it's like a stance style, it's going to hit the body, and it's going to start rubbing on the rubber. It's going to start rubbing on the body, and it's just going to start smoking. And it's going to start smoking, and it's going to cause issues, and you're going to damage your tire. Because I've already seen it. I've had it happen with me on the dyno, and I've seen it. So just make sure your ride height is right. Make sure it's up properly, because we have a million other things we're looking at. Paying attention to the sound of the engine, the sound of the transmission, looking at the tune, checking the logs. We don't also want to be worrying about your tires back there in the rear getting caught up into the wheel well.
Yeah, or the drive shaft hitting the dyno and stuff like that, like you were saying.
Or anything like that. I've had it happen like that, where I had to put a car, and the customer dropped it off, and they came down from out of state, and so I can't tell them no, I'm not going to do it. So I've had it where I had to position of the car a certain way on the higher part of the roller, just to create more clearance, so the drive shaft is not rubbing on the dyno. So I've had it happen like that before. So I'm mentioning all this stuff because I've been through it.
Right. So once we finally get it up on the dyno, Desmond, then what happens?
You stay clear. You stay clear from the dyno, the operator, while running it. I can't stress this enough. I tell people all the time, when I'm operating, I'm set up and I'm tuning, there is nothing on this screen for you to see that you're not going to see in the end.
Right.
Just stay clear. I'm pretty sure people seen 1,000 videos of a dyno strap breaking, the car comes unwind, it gets sideways, or something breaks off, or the tire blows out, or for example, when I told you about the wheel falling off, and you and your little boy, your little girl, your daughter, and y'all trying to run up to the close to the dyno just to see a dyno number, you putting yourself at harm. And not even just putting yourself at harm, you're also putting me in a liability, for that. So I've had that happen way more times than I wanted it. So now at my shop, I put rope out where the do not enter past this area. It's just safer that way, and I tell people all the time. I've had people while I'm operating the dyno, and I'm about to make a pull, and they walk over in the middle while I'm operating, and their body is side by side with the passenger door, and I have to stop, and I have to tell the dude, I'm like, hey man, you got to back up, man. Stay behind the dyno, because at any given time, if something happens with the strap, if the strap fails, whatever, we do not want this car coming towards you.
Right.
We do not want anything like that. Your life, you are more important than this car. Your family is more important than this car. So if I need you, I have no problem of saying, hey, or honking the horn, come over here, let me talk to you, let me show you this. Or when I'm done, I go over everything with the customer. So when I'm done, I'll show you everything. If you ask me how much horsepower it made, I'll tell you. I don't really care, but don't run over. I don't know any dyno shop that likes that. Operators and shops do not like customers who are always running over to the screen. I'm on the dyno trying to make power for you. I don't even run over to the screen.
Right.
So it's just, I don't need you running over to the screen. Let me do what I have to do, and that's it. It's like when you drop your car off at a dealership, you're not back there while your car's on the lift while they're working. they won't let you back there. So the same rules applies in performance shops, in dyno shops, and anything tuning operating. Just stay clear. Watch your car. If you want to record your videos. Ask the shop, is it okay if I can record here, whatever, and just stay clear. And everything, let them do their work. This way, they're not sidetracked. I've had people before when I'm tuning, and literally, I don't know why, I don't know what was going on, but he was running to the screen. He thought it made like some horsepower number, but I was still like coming down from acceleration from doing the pull, and I was going pretty quick. So when I looked at my miles per hour, I was about 95 miles per hour coming down, and I saw him running over, and I looked in the corner of my eye. He doesn't know if I'm about to get back on the throttle,
right,
and test something out. So just stay clear at least until I come to a stop, and then if you have to like get my attention or whatever like that, cool. But just stay clear.
You know,
there's nothing that you need to see before it's ready.
Yeah, and you know, something that it made me think of when you talk about somebody running up in there is, you know, if you're tuning a car on methanol, you could run in there and pass out if you don't have a mask on.
Correct. Just because I've been in cars where the fumes were so strong. I've been in cars where the gas was so strong.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, I gotta put my gas mask on. So very, very rarely I do, because I have a lot of fans, and my shop is like kind of like a tunnel. So it's not like a big shop. So when I put my fans on from the front, and my fans on from the back, it moves the fumes out. But there's times where I had to put my mask on. A couple pictures and videos, if y'all ever seen me with it on, is because the fumes got so damn strong. Like, I had to put that on. So like, I don't need you running over in the shop with the fumes like that as well. You know?
Right.
Like I said, it's all safety first. You know, if anything happens to you, then what's the point of me even tuning this car?
Exactly.
I'm tuning this car for no reason.
Yep. And, you know, you touched on it a little bit, Desmond, but I want to talk about the very, very real possibility that something could happen to my powertrain while I'm getting a dyno tune.
Yep. Of course. Yeah, anything powertrain. It could be transmission. It could be rear end. It could be your clutch. Any given thing could happen. Nothing is ever built to last. You got guys in NASCAR blowing transmissions. You got guys in top field dragsters blowing transmissions. And of course, if you got your Evo X or Evo 8 or 9 stock transmission, at any given time, you know, nothing's ever like made to hold up forever. So something could happen. But I always recommend that, like I said, it goes back to choosing the right tuner. The right tuner would tell you, okay, you're on a 6-speed, then this is the limit for 6-speed of horsepower and torque and this and that. And versus if you go to somebody who doesn't understand the platform and they just trying to throw god loads of boost and power through it,
right?
They don't understand it. So it goes back to just choosing the right operator, the right tuner, the right person that's going to be tuning your car. They will understand the limits of certain things. They will understand if it's going to hold up to a certain boost level, horsepower level, and hopefully they'll go over that with you, explain that why you can't make that kind of power because of this drivetrain. And you know, and you could take that in consideration for everything. So, but yeah, the drivetrain can also, you know, be affected in there. There's if it can happen, it will happen.
Yeah. I think it's important to remember, you know, I'm speaking specifically about the 4G63 4B11, that if you're going to a dyno tune, you could be making 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times the power that powertrain was made to take. So, you know, anything could happen, just like Desmond said.
Right. Yeah, anything can happen. Even if it's the automatic SST, that in the factory form, and that's a perfect example right here. The automatic SST, those, like, without it being modified or built or anything like that, those in the factory form can't take a lot of power because they'll start slipping.
Right. And
then, you know, you don't want to break parts, you don't want to cause damages. But if you already know the platform for that transmission, for tuning it, knowing the limits of how much torque, knowing how to tune the transmission, the settings on this. There's SST tuning as well as engine tuning,
Yep.
and knowing all that will also keep the life of that transmission. So it's very important, as I mentioned, choosing the right operator, the right tuner for your platform, because that is what's going to keep everything happier. And if your car, your engine, your turbo, your transmission, and all that's happier, you are going to stay happier as a customer for that service.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I know the SSTs, they're a picky breed, that SST
Yes.
transmission.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And they're really fun. I've had cars before on a fully built setup, and he came in with a Precision 64 millimeter ID 2000s double pumper built motor, and we tuned that car. I think it was roughly around 700. That did not feel like no 700 horsepower car. When I went on the street and I did a pull in that shit, it felt like it was like 800 plus. Like it just. I was just so amazed how strong, these built auto transmissions, how they feel on the street.
Right.
Like every gear that he changed, that he let me test drive it, and I went through all the gears. It literally pulled you like a freight train.
Yep.
Every single time he hit that paddle shift, it felt stronger and stronger and stronger. So I'm very surprised by them. It takes a lot of money to build them up, and also keeping up with the maintenance on them, but they're also good. They're also good transmission as well.
Absolutely. So, Desmond, finally, what should I do once my dyno tune is done? We've finished it all up. You've read me the numbers. You showed me the power band. Then what happens?
Now, what I do after I finish dyno, and I can only speak about what I do. I go over everything with the customer. So that goes back to when I said, there's no need for you to run over to the screen, because when I'm done with the session, I'm going to bring you to the screen. I'm going to bring you to the car and the screen. I'm going to go over everything. So I go over why the car is doing this, why the car is making this dip, why the car, how well the power band is carrying out, what you need to do to make more power. I go over everything. I go over all the good news, all the bad news. This way, when they leave a session with me, they're not in like a blank state of mind. Like, I don't know what's going on, or I don't know this and that, but like I go over everything, good, bad, and ugly. This way, you understand that, you're getting quality service, you're paying for quality service, and so I go over it all. My main thing is always going over the graph, showing how the power band, how it curves, how efficient everything is working together. I just had a car last week Friday. I think it was last week Friday. The gentleman came down from South Carolina or North Carolina. It took him like 9 hours to get to Florida. And we went over, when we was done, we went over everything. Car made a little bit over 800. It made like halfway 660 or 670 foot-pounds of torque. We went over everything. I told them, this is good power, but this right here, how this curves right here. If you upgrade the camshafts, you upgrade the turbine housing, you could carry this a little bit further, carry this a little bit more smoother. And, even though we met his goals and that's what he wanted to make, but I kind of showed him like how his car is behaving, like on the graph.
Yeah.
And for anything future wise that he may want to upgrade, he may drive it for a little bit. And he's like, okay, I'm used to this. I want to make more power. Okay, well, Desmond did go over that these camshafts are already running at its limit. This turbine housing on this turbo is already running at its limit, and we're knocking at the door of running out of fuel. So it's just, so I go over everything with them. I pull the spark plugs out. I go over the spark plugs. I show them how it's burning. I show them the color, the color that you want on the spark plug strap. You don't want it shiny. You're trying to get it that nice tan burn, nice and smooth. I showed them how you have enough, like how you can tell if you have enough heat in your motor by how dark your threads are on your plugs, how high, like how down it's like the coloration gets on your spark plugs from the threads, for how further down it is or how further up it is. All that plays a factor in the tune. I go over everything. So this way, whenever they go home or whenever they're traveling, 8 hours back up north or wherever they're going, if they ever have to pull their own plugs, they already educated in that area of what to look for, what to know, what to understand.
Yeah.
This way, they know their vehicle a lot more instead of just, okay, I know I got to drop in spark plugs. I pull out the old ones. I don't know what I'm looking at. All right, throw them in the trash. At least they know, like, okay, tune's looking on point. This and that. Desmond showed me this. He went over this, and then he put the new set in. Then when he pulls the new sets back out, whenever it's time to do another plug change, or if the car is running funny, then they could also pull every spark plug out and then see the difference on that. So at least I just educate my clientele, so this way they know their car just as well as I tuned it.
Yeah. And, I wanted to say in there too that, once they go to the track, they can make the, if they want to make small changes, they want to turn the boost up, they can do that kind of stuff because now they know that this is what it's supposed to do and what it's supposed to look like.
Right. Yes and no. To that, they know what certain things look at. If your car is already on borderline kill mode, when I mean kill mode, I don't mean dangerous. I mean like everything is full jam. If you're not familiar with it, I definitely don't recommend you even turning up the boost or touching anything because you don't know why the operator sometimes ran the car a little bit more richer than most. You might be trying to target a richer AFR, not slightly too rich, but it's a slight little rich AFR, because you started seeing little signs of knock or little signs of whatever. So a little bit more richer, it runs a little bit more happier, it runs a little bit more better.
Yeah.
Certain cars, it runs fine at a particular AFR reading or where you want it at, and it's perfect. Some cars, it varies. There's not any magic wand of this number is what you have to be. My buddy told me this is the AFR I have to be at. His car runs it as AFR. There is nothing like that. Your engine is not his engine.
Right.
Your elevation is not his elevation. Yeah. Your fuel system is not his fuel system. Your voltage is not your voltage. So every car runs different. I don't tune based off a number where you need to be at, You're supposed to tune what the engine wants. You give it what the engine wants, and it sounds so much happier. It makes good power. Power band looks nice. Things stay together. You enjoy the car. You love the experience.
Heck yeah. Well, Desmond, thank you again for coming on here. I know for me, I've never done a dyno tune, so I feel way more comfortable now to be able to take my car there and to know what's going to happen and to know this is why it happens like this. So thank you again. And, I just want to say the dyno list on MitsuTimes has been, way more popular than I think either one of us thought. I got people calling and texting me saying, I need to get on here and I just want to get this number at this certain level. I'm going to go back to the dyno so I can get in the top 10. It's just crazy how it's taken off. So thank you for that.
Right. Hey, man, I appreciate it, man. Like I said, I'm here for the industry. I love cars. I love racing. I love tuning. I literally live, breathe, sweat, bleed, everything to do anything to do with cars, especially tuning. Tuning is my main thing, and I love getting in there and getting things working out, figuring out why a car is a problem for you. Yeah, I've got guys coming like, this car hasn't ran for 3 years, or I went to this shop, and I love getting in there and trying to figure it out. Hopefully now with this podcast, it explains the difference between all the dynos, the difference between why numbers look different, the difference between why this person swears by Mustang dyno, this person's only used dyno jet, this person is this, that, and third. Like, they're all just tuning tools at the end of the day. I wanted to fixate yourself on it. You want to make sure that you get a dyno and you're just doing back-to-back pulls, and every pull can replica and repeat itself just as good as the last. And well, of course, as you're making more pulls, hopefully you're making more power, and it keeps going up. But it's just a tool that you use for, you make some changes, you make another run, you see where the difference is, you see how it curves different if you made more power, or if you made some changes and you just lost 100 horsepower.
Yeah. Now
you got to figure out, okay, why did I lose that? It's just a back-to-back replica, repeatable tool to use. Dyno is not made to use for internet fame.
Right.
Internet fame is not what it's made for. It's just made for it's just equipment to use to see where you stand with your setup and the process of tuning.
Well, Desmond, maybe you should drop all your website, your Instagram, your Facebook, so people can get a hold of you to pick your brain a little more and get on your shop schedule.
Yeah, I love that. If anybody wants to work with me, I'm all on board. Of course, I do dyno tuning. I do travel tuning. So if anybody needs me in their state, it could be the Caribbean, it could be overseas, it could be the other side of the state, California, New York, Pennsylvania, Oklahoma, wherever they need me. If you have a few of your buddies and everybody wants to get tuned and y'all need me out there, I'm there for it. It's all about just being there for each other in the community. And if you want to reach me, you can reach me. Best contact is 941-268-7493. And you can also reach me on WhatsApp with that same number. Or you can get me on social media at Performance Destination. My Instagram is performance_destination. And we're also on YouTube. So I put all my YouTube content out there. Everything I went through in this podcast, explaining everything, why certain things run the way they do, anything that's problematic, going over the graph, going over the plugs, I do that on my YouTube channel, on all the cars I tune. So if you will see that on our YouTube channel, and it's Performance Destination. And give it a like, give it a follow, give it a share. I like to keep it quite interesting. I'm always throwing up different cars, different setups, different builds, different vehicles, always having different customer experiences on there. Customers go on there and they also talk about their experience with us, how well their car drives now, how did the car drive before, what is it doing now, how does it feel, do you feel satisfied? I'm all about customer service. Customer service is everything with me. And then it's making sure that the end user just appreciates the effort I'm putting in. So if you need to work with me, just give me a call. If you need me to travel to where you are, just give me a call, give me a ring. Or if you need to reach me on my website, it's performancedestination.com.
Heck yeah. You were saying customer support. I know there wasn't a lot of Mitsubishis at the reunion event, but there you were trackside, just helping even customers that, have learned to tune their car themselves. There you were there to provide support. So
right.
You're not going to get any better customer support than that.
Hey man, that's all it is. We're here for this industry. And I just want to keep it alive. I never want this industry to get smaller or go away. I'm here to keep it alive. I'm here because I love cars. I love being around other people who are car heads. If we get to bounce ideas off of, I love talking to other tuners. I got a lot of tuning friends, a lot of tuning buddies. We always bounce ideas. They can call me at all times. Even if they get stuck in a situation, they call me. I'm here to, I'm never too big or too proud to give help, ask for help, or anything like that. So we're all in the industry together to grow and learn and become a better version than yesterday. So I'm always down to help wherever I can, if I can.
Heck yeah. All right, Desmond. Well, thanks again, and I will definitely be talking to you soon.
All right. This is Desmond Pierre signing out.
Thank you for listening to the MitsuTimes podcast. Check out our Instagram and Facebook for daily updates. Get added to our list by going to MitsuTimes.org and clicking Submit a Slip. Thank you to all of our sponsors.